Well, thank you very much, Amber. Um, Despite everything that she said, I am still just a regular guy, born and raised here in Broward County. And fortunately, a few years ago, I made a series of some choices outside of my comfort zone that led me to unlocking my hidden potential. And I'd like to think if I was truly just a regular Johnny 9-to-5 recruiter sitting at a desk, listening to some TED Talks, getting some inspirations, that anybody can make choices to unlock their hidden potential, to change their life, their community, the art world, the world and beyond, or whatever it may be for them. But before all that, I was a baby. And before all that, my parents met, I like to tell this story, through something called S training, EST, which was before Landmark Education and the Landmark Forum. I'm going to ask some questions. We're going to keep this interactive. There's no wrong answer. Has anybody ever heard of S training? It was in the 70s. Has anybody ever heard of the Landmark Forum? Okay. It's like a self-help, professional development, transformational type workshop seminar series. It kind of predated gratitude training. But essentially the reason why, and my parents were very passionate about it, they would volunteer, they would co-host, so on and so forth. The reason I share that is I feel like those genes were intrinsically passed down into my DNA and kind of gave me a little of this start of like altruism, wanting to help people, build community. The other part that I like to mention, I grew up playing the game of lacrosse. And when I grew up, it was a club sport. We would play private schools, but it wasn't in the public schools. And my father, my godfather, and a lot of his coaches and friends advocated for the game, going to conferences, workshops, school board meetings, to the point that the year after I finished high school, the game became an FHSAA public school sport and earned my father a spot in the U.S. Lacrosse Hall of Fame. So I'd like to think that those advocacy genes and the genes of wanting to help others were passed down to me intrinsically in my DNA. Fortunately, my parents made a great decision to move to Broward County, where I was born and raised in Coral Springs. And the very short version of my childhood, I was a good baby. I tumbled, did karate, mommy and me, all that good stuff. And then, I was a good first grader, second grader, third grader. But then fourth grade, fifth grade, started getting in trouble. I started speaking out. And I started saying all the things that all the other kids wanted to say, but nobody wanted to say because they didn't want to get in trouble. How many of you guys have kids? Okay. So one of the things that I really want to share with this story and with the book is, I know it must be tough. I don't have kids, so I really don't know firsthand, but I know it was very tough on my parents. And I know there's a lot of things of like what the book says to do. You should take this straight, narrow path. Well, like, what book is that? Like, don't they update these books? Can't there be like a new version of the book? Because when we were growing up, entrepreneurship was really not something that was preached, let alone creative entrepreneurship. So I'm here to remind you that there is another path and there is another way. And even if your kids maybe aren't doing the best in school, maybe if they're getting in a little bit of trouble, well, like, don't give up on them. Not that you were going to, but just a friendly reminder from the universe that there is another way. I did spend a lot of time in internal, external suspension, never got arrested, never got in that much trouble, but I definitely would speak out. And ultimately, the reason why I share that is my throat chakra, I found out later when I got into yoga, was blocked. I had the ability to speak up and say things, but I wasn't doing it for good. And then fortunately, when I found my true voice and calling as an arts advocate, as a community builder later, it better served me. And then started working some jobs, and then did some sales, Verizon Wireless, AT&T, wasn't really for me. Did a little real estate, kind of was for me, didn't really like it so much, and stumbled into, I was playing poker from high school. Through poker, I stumbled into an industry called recruiting, headhunting. Does anybody know, like, staffing, right? Fitting a square peg in a round hole, getting people jobs, so on and so forth. So I learned a lot about systems, I learned a lot about operations, organizations, and in recruiting, there's a lot of networking. There's a lot of like events, so you learn how to meet people, speak to people, interview people, and some of these events that I really liked were TED Talks. Does anybody know who this guy is on the right? Good guess. You already knew that. I would start listening to these TED Talks on my lunch break. I would go to my parents' house and watch TED Talks after work, and then Fortunately, they would have TEDx NSU at Nova Southeastern, where I heard students, professors, alumni, and fortunately, I was able to be there for Dr. Guy Harvey's TED Talk. If you don't know Dr. Guy Harvey, he's the most prolific marine artist of all time. And just hearing those really started providing some inspiration for me while I'm working at this desk being a recruiter as a Johnny 9 to 5. So I really love these TED Talks. Then I discovered this guy. Does anybody, I know it's kind of, yes, it is.
Yeah. I worked with Vayner for like,
oh, no shit.
I worked in tech, but like I covered Vayner, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Gary V, baby.
He was, long story short, he came to this country from Belarus. Family started working in a wine shop, owned the wine shop. He grew the wine shop from 3 million to 65 million when Google Ads came out. He was one of the first people on Google Ads. He's been ahead of a lot of trends. He took one of the first Uber rides. He was one of the first people in Airbnb, one of the first investors in Facebook. So he's had a lot of success, and he was preaching entrepreneurship. And if you notice on the right, when I was doing this recruiting thing, one of the things that was really starting to come up was, what do you want to do every day for the rest of your life? Do that. And then the other thing, and he's very big on kindness. He's very big on being altruistic and being authentic and genuine, is doing the right thing is always the right thing to do. So these were some of my early inspirations. He gave one of his talks, and he has evolved, and his content, it's not for everybody. It's an acquired taste, just like a David Goggins, but he had to talk 6 minutes for the next 60 years of your life. And he made a quote that stuck with me. He goes, you can put your head down and grind on something for 3 years, and if you wake up, you could still be 33 years old. And I happened to have been 30 years old at the time when he said that. It really resonated with me. So at this time, I really enjoyed going to restaurants. And I don't know if you know this, but this is a really cool part of the story that I like to share. I would take pictures and I would post them on this thing called Foursquare. Does anybody remember that? It's kind of like Vimeo. And I was like not really doing anything with it, but my friends would say, I love the places that snow stops at. And one of the first places I would go to was the Rebel House, which, did it just close?
It just closed. My heart broke.
I know, we could talk about that another time. Crazy. But I would take pictures of food, and then my friends were like, you should really look to do something with it. Fortunately, I met a woman at a training seminar who on the break told me she was doing something called blogging, where she was getting paid to write about cool stuff that she was getting for free. And it was very like Rob Report-esque. She was getting like watches and shoes and luxury items. So it was very cool. So made a little mental bookmark in my mind about this blogging thing. And around this time, 2014, Yelp was starting to become a thing. So I had a couple friends fortunately support me into starting Snow's Stops food blog, because they like the places that Snow stops at. I go by my last name, not a big fan of my first name. So this blogging thing was very serendipitous. Around this time, does anybody, I know it's small, but does anybody know who this young woman is on the left here? Not you. I get invited by a friend and mentor of mine to a monthly breakfast lecture series, a mini TED Talk called Creative Mornings. And my mentor knew I loved these TED Talks. And first one, not so great. Second one, a lot better. Third one was this woman, Alexa Rose Carlin, who was a promising college student working in New York City in fashion, developed a bacterial infection, developed sepsis, got in a coma, 1% chance of living, saw herself running through the green field of grass, hooked up to all the machines, got out of the coma, and found new purpose in life, ended up starting something called the Women's Empowerment Expo, which ran for many years up until COVID. She since moved to Raleigh, and actually she just had her twins like last night. So she was speaking on the topic of language. And it's not that we speak the language of English, Hebrew, or Spanish. She was more speaking, if you preach the language of positivity, you'll portray positivity. If you speak the language of unworthiness, your actions and reactions will be unworthy. But more so than that, she had a very interesting story. She was preaching to be genuine, be authentic, and pursue your passions. And at this time, I had just moved to downtown Fort Lauderdale from the western suburbs of Coral Springs in Broward County. And I now am like more in this urban downtown area where there are more restaurants and stuff like that. So I'm like, wow, this was really powerful. This was kind of like an aha moment for me. Long story short, I get really involved with the Creative Mornings. I start hosting the Fort Lauderdale chapter. Amber, Nicole, and some other really passionate people supported the creation of a Palm Beach chapter. in 2017. And started doing that, went to the summit for the organizers, and I really love this monthly breakfast lecture series thing. Then I'm just like kind of amateur going through the motions. I had just left recruiting to join Entrepreneurville, which meant I was really driving Uber and Lyft to make ends meet. I was really committed to trying to figure it out. And I wanted to give myself the freedom and the flexibility to be able to figure it out. So I move in with two brothers from Honduras by way of Memphis, who when their friends would come, they would say, David doesn't choose 901 because he doesn't go back home to Memphis. And I'm like, what's this choose 901 thing? I'm kind of interesting cat. I decided to pick up the phone and call and speak to one of the founders. And they tell me Choose 901 was a social movement that was started by the church to initially teach people computer skills because Memphis, while it's a great city, a lot of history, a lot of culture, unfortunately has 2 of the 5 worst neighborhoods in the country. And my friend's smiling over there because she's from Memphis and knows all about this. And then eventually the city acquired this social movement and gave it a $26 million operating budget to recruit teachers, paramedics, and firefighters to want to live and work in Memphis. So I'm like, okay, despite all the bad stuff that I saw in the news, I decided to go. You can't really make it out on the left, but they have something called the World Championship Barbecue Festival during a month-long Memphis in May annual festival where every weekend is a festival, music festival. And I'm a food blogger, so I'm like, shit, I want to go check out this Memphis in May thing. So I go, I get supercharged and inspired. I'm at this time just starting to go to Flagler Village, Broward County, starting to meet artists, starting to tour artist studios, starting to get more connected with the artists. I was like taking some pictures. Once again, I wasn't really doing anything with it. I had the food blog. I'm like, I think I kind of want to pivot to arts and culture blogging, but like not making any money doing this. But I was making relationships with artists. I was establishing relationships with small businesses. I was supporting small businesses. And at this time, there wasn't really anybody doing this in Broward County except for New Times. That was really it. So 1 month before the art walk in June of 2016, with my cell phone and a hashtag, I start a social movement called Choose 954 with inspiration from Memphis. As in my opinion, my view, it was to cultivate culture and community in Broward County. I was going out every day, going to a ton of events, and I felt like if the people that I grew up with, maybe 30, 35 minutes to the west of me in Coral Springs in Broward County, if they knew what was going on, it would give them reasons to choose the 954. So I'm doing this literally, I'm only doing this for like 2 months. And fortunately, the way the universe works, I get invited to the Tower Club. Does anybody know the Tower Club? It's atop the Regions Bank building in downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's a members only club. It used to be like a smoky kind of like, not secret society, but it was like you wouldn't really stumble into there. And a woman I met at my second Creative Mornings talk, who was a corporate attorney, college professor, radio show host, Natalie Budo, wonderful woman, recurring theme. She saw something in me. I didn't see it myself. This woman, I'm a high school and college dropout, not proudly, went all the way to the end, just couldn't wrap my head around the math I wouldn't use. We built a relationship and a friendship. She invited me to this TEDx simulcast event where she was playing Amanda Palmer's TED Talk on the art of giving. She was a street performer, used to be one of the top 10 most watched TED Talks of all time. Still a great TED Talk. But basically the way the story goes, and I appreciate you guys still being here. It's a good story. It's getting better. There is a networking component after. Some old gray hair guy to my right after the end of this event goes, well, tell me what you do. I'm like, well, I just started this Choose 954 thing. That guy could have cared less. And fortunately, there's a very sharply dressed Trinidadian brother with a Dolly mustache and a Zara suit that was sitting to my left that overheard that. And he goes, that's interesting. Why don't we meet for coffee in the Tower Club the next week? And I had done like thousands of interviews as a recruiter. And I tell him my little story, just as I told you. I did a little sales, I played a little poker, I did a little recruiting. Now I got to choose 954. He tells me he came to this country from Trinidad in pursuit of his American dream, went to Miami College of Art and Design, His college professor was Lawrence Gartell, the pioneer of digital art. He worked for some of the largest advertising agencies, Saatchi, JWT, and he would say, I want to be an artist, but I always like nice things, so I couldn't be a full-time artist, so he got into advertising. So, president of the Advertising Federation, involved in Vision 2020 for Broward County, started the Art as an Entrepreneur program for Broward County, served on every chamber board, president of the American Advertising Federation, very heavily involved, early stages of Fat Village, started the Art Walk in Fat Village, started the Art Walk on Las Olas, did the logo for Las Olas, got burnt out because he didn't have a partner to go with him on this journey, and it is quite the journey. So when I met him, he had gone back to corporate. He was a marketing director for Westfield Corporation, which is the third largest mall company in the world. He was the marketing director for Broward Mall. And he would start venturing out to wanting to see what was back out there in the community. Unfortunately, I caught him at the right place at the right time. And you're actually in this next slide. On the third coffee meeting, we were sitting there and we're brainstorming and we're talking about all the things that Fort Lauderdale and Broward County didn't have at that time. We didn't have an Art Basel. We didn't have a Wynwood. And we're like, you know, we really want to have a big event. We really want to have something like a signature event, like a Basel and Broward. And I said that to him and he goes, I always wanted to do Basel and Broward. And this is when the things start getting really good. So thank you guys for staying with me this long. Instead of doing what everybody else does, doing an art fair in a tent, a convention center, or a hotel, we decided to do utilize the unique elements of Fort Lauderdale to do an art fair. We have beautiful homes on the Las Olas Intercoastal Waterway System, the Venice of the Americas, and we have a water taxi. What if we could do the first and only art fair in the world held inside of luxury waterfront homes that were for sale, made only accessible via boat? And we did it. And you would think if you come up with a groundbreaking, revolutionary idea where the art fair world was crying out for reinventing, the city would want to get involved, the county would want to get involved, the business community would want to get involved. Well, none of those people wanted to get involved. And God bless my business partner, my soon-to-be business partner, one of my first great choices, choosing a business partner, choosing a venture. He opened his piggy bank to the tune of $50,000 from his 401k and self-funded an art fair. And I still do. I met a lot of people. I've never met anybody else that would do that. It was an investment in our future, but he knew to get it off the ground, to rent the boats, to do the marketing, you know, so on and so forth, we were going to have to, you know, have some funding. This ran for 4 years up until the pandemic. The last time we did it was in January 2020. As Amber mentioned, and as some of you experienced, it was a great event. We hope to bring it back 1 year, but it served its purpose because we exhibited over 500 artists and over 1,000 pieces of artwork in 4 years. And since we started getting involved with the real estate board, it brought a lot of attention. Our goal, yes, it didn't become Art Basel. I wish it did, but our goal, very humbly, when we set out, was to put Fort Lauderdale on the art world map as an international destination to view and interact with art, and as evidenced by us getting in Forbes, Architectural Digest, CNN Travel, NPR, PBS, Art Loft. We succeeded in that goal. And then the commercial real estate people started coming, and they would say, hey, could you do art in our commercial space? Oh yeah, by the way, we're not going to pay you for it. And simultaneously, all these artists were asking us, hey, where are studios at, let alone affordable? So we put our thinking caps on, and Andrew had experience from being the marketing director of a mall where he would take the vacant corner of the food court and he would put a commission-free art gallery in there. So we said, we left the meeting. Broward County at the time had a news article came out that it was one of the least affordable counties for housing. We said, what if we can make this one of the most affordable places for artists to create in? And we reached out to Mayor Dean Trantellis, the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, supported the program, one of the first openly gay mayors of a major city, and he said, hey, Dean, what do you think about this? He said, reach out to Mike Weymouth, the owner of Las Olas Company. We did. We got our first space on Las Olas, had one of the widest attended grand openings of anything in Fort Lauderdale history, over 1,000 people in the streets, based off the novelty of artists and studios, not a gallery, not, snooty, people selling overpriced art. These were real local artists. And that first space has now led to 30 spaces over the last 4 years in 3 states, now in 9 counties. We've had over 400 artists come through the program. One of them is here, Michelle. We've changed hundreds of artists' lives thousands of times over. And why I share this with you guys is I never would have imagined when I set out with my cell phone and a hashtag that we'd be putting artists in a former Burberry store in the only art studio in the world next to a Louis Vuitton, where somebody is walking out, spending thousands of dollars and saying, oh, what's this art studio right here? So I'd like to think if I was truly just a regular Johnny 9-to-5 recruiter guy that made a couple choices to step outside my comfort zone, anybody can. And in the midst of that, one last thing came up, silly. I didn't want to manage artists. I still don't want to manage artists. But these artists came to me with this idea, and they go, oh, I want to put sculptures on top of rocks and put them in the ocean and call them artificial reefs. And I said, I have no idea what that means, and I have no idea why this isn't working, but it's okay. And they showed me a documentary called Chasing Coral on Netflix. Has anybody ever heard of that? It's made by the same people that made Seaspiracy, which was very widely well received. And it woke me up. It was my aha moment. So I got involved. All they wanted to do was make the art. We fortunately found a reef builder who was very resourceful, concrete expert. All he wanted to do was make the reefs. Somebody had to do the events. Somebody had to do the marketing. Somebody had to do the nonprofit. Somebody had to do all the other stuff. That was me. And we've since led to 2 sites, one in Palm Beach, one in Hollywood. We've put 105 of these in the ocean off the coast of Southeast Florida, and it was a great thing. But obviously, you can begin to see I was burning myself out. I was doing a lot. And then the pandemic happens. And some of us fared better with the pandemic than others. Some of us, myself included, were like, oh, I'm going to come out of this a better version of myself. And I really wasn't. And I got the little workout bands, and I was doing the little thing on my apartment, balcony, but I wasn't really doing it. And then somehow the universe took me to Tulum with the nonprofit for the second time I went in 2020. And on the second time, we're on the beach in the state park, the North Park, just south of the ruins. And we're there supporting another nonprofit friend of ours that had a project that was trying to restore this vacant lighthouse to make a coral nursery, marine biology lab. And I'm flying the drone, doing the time lapse, and my nonprofit partner, who is 10 years younger than me, went off to go explore the lighthouse, which was like a 30-minute round trip, like 10-minute walk, 10-minute explore, 10-minute back. So we had 30 minutes to kill. And her friend, the guy that I had just met the day before, 10 years younger than me, did not know this guy, said the words to me that ultimately changed the course of my life. And he said, you want to do some yoga? And I said, sure. And he was not a teacher. He was just a practitioner. We did a couple down dogs, a couple sun salutations, and I just felt my body opening in ways that it never opened. I tried once or twice before. Yoga wasn't for me, but I felt really good. We were on the go a lot during that trip. And I'm sitting there on the beach in Tulum, and I had just moved into a beautiful brand new building in downtown Fort Lauderdale with a 25th floor green space wraparound view that you could see all of Broward County. And somehow the universe placed this absolutely beautiful soul who's probably going to walk in here any second now, that I knew from Mass District, from the Arts District. She had run a yoga space there. They placed her in the building to offer free yoga. And I saw she was doing it. At this time, I had also just met some girl that I saw was going to yoga. She was a personal trainer, kind of attractive. And we started chatting, and I sent Chloe a message. Her name's Chloe Ravel, aka the Gemini Rising. I say, hey, Chloe, can you put in a good word for me with this girl? And Chloe says, the next words that changed my life, come to yoga. And it started with, well, and long story short, the girl evaporated, the yoga stuck. It started with one class, true story. It started with one class, I found out she was offering a second class, one class in the morning, second class at night, was a slow flow, really chill. And then I found out she was playing sound bowls. She actually has a sound bowl event tonight, not too far in Delray. You guys are more than welcome to be our guests. And I was hooked. We started spending more time together, and I made another great choice that I always wanted to make. I engaged Chloe in coaching. I never had a personal coach like that, and she helped me develop some much needed habits, rituals, and daily practices, some of which that I outlined in this little book here you might have heard about. Thank you very much. Called Learning to Choose. So I outlined like my morning routine, very simply, wake up, initial moment of gratitude, whatever comes to mind. I'm grateful to be alive. Immediately turn on affirmations. How many of you guys have ever like listened to affirmations? I'm healthy, I'm whole, I'm alive, right? If you listen to 100 of them a day, you listen to them every day, that's 700 a week. 28 days on average in a month, that's, let's call it 3,000. 12 months, let's call that 36,000. You're reprogramming your mind of positive stuff subconsciously. And then they sprinkle in binaural beats and different hertz to unlock brainwave patterns right as you wake up. Really good stuff. Then I go to the toilet. Then I turn on motivational talks from the likes of David Goggins, Gary Vee, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Alan Watts. Just put on the YouTube playlist, and they sprinkle all these people in, and it's great. And it's all for free. It's on YouTube. And then I have my breakfast. I take my vitamins and supplements, which is important to me. I'm type 1 diabetic, so health is wealth. You have to feel your best to do your best to be your best. So I outline my vitamins and supplements regimen in the book as well. Then I meditate 5-10 minutes. Try to go for 10, but sometimes it's 5. Free on YouTube as well. And then I do a little brief morning flow yoga at home if I don't go to a class. Couple down dogs, couple of child's poses, couple little things, right? 5 or 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, whatever you got. Then, fortunately, I go to the sauna because I have it in the building. Sauna helps. Then I take a cold shower, and I'm ready for my day. And it sounds like a lot, and sometimes it takes 2 hours, sometimes it takes 3 hours. But once again, to be your best, you have to feel your best so you can do your best. Health is very important to me. Health should be important to everybody. But if you have diabetes, or if you have an autoimmune condition, or if you have any condition, you should really take your health seriously. So now I've kind of become a little bit of a meditation and mindfulness advocate. Not a teacher, I'm not a practitioner, but one thing I wanted to start kind of sharing with people. Has anybody ever heard of this before, box breathing? All right, this is a tried and true proven method that the military is implementing into their troops that they could do in the middle of a firefight. We're going to do a very brief 20-second version of it. So it's literally you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, and then you hold for 4 seconds. We're going to do one round. You don't have to get in any special pose. You can just sit. You can close your eyes if you like. I'll guide you very briefly. This is the first time I'm doing this, so bear with me. But we're going to inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Blink your eyes open. We just made a little box. You can do that 4 rounds, 5 rounds, 1 round, whatever you got. You do that throughout the day. It helps you reset your parasympathetic nervous system, helps you feel better. Countless benefits to breathing and mindfulness. All of this you can find on the internet, on YouTube, all for free. Last one I just want to share. Yoga looks like different for a lot of people. Has anybody ever done this pose before? Legs up the wall. Okay? That is yoga. This is yoga. My favorite yoga, And people think about, Bikram and hot yoga and Lululemon and California and blah, 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 blah. But like, yes, that is one form of yoga. And those are the asanas. Those are the physical practices. There's so many other forms of yoga. Has anybody ever heard of yoga nidra? NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. It's another way of taking a nap. It just kind of guides you through a body scan, helps you reset your nervous system. So every night before I go to bed, I do a standing forward fold. It provides a lot of benefits for your backs, for your legs, for your thighs, for your calves, for your hamstrings, for your knees. And then this legs up the wall pose, even if you don't put your legs up the wall, even just putting your legs up allows the blood to kind of recirculate and reflow through your body. So I'm not a teacher, just a practitioner, truly just a regular guy. And I feel that if I was able to make a couple of these choices, to step outside of my comfort zone, to unlock my hidden potential, to make a difference in my life, my community, the art world, the world beyond, anybody can make some choices. So that's why I'm now doing a little speaking. I did recently publish my first book, Learning to Choose, to share this story. Because once again, this is not going to become a New York Times bestseller in all reality. But I will feel it's successful if it could change one life, your kid's life, your friend's kid's life, some kid's life that you mentor, your niece, your nephew, whoever, because we're all just a kid from somewhere, like that Derrick Rose commercial says, the Powerful Powerade commercial. And that's pretty much that. And I'll be respectful of your time, but I will just read I won't read a whole chapter. I'm just going to read from Learning to Choose, Helping Others, and then I'll answer questions, and then we can sign if you want a signature, and then I'll let you guys get on the rest of your day. Fair enough? Cool. Each chapter starts with a quote. This one's actually very serendipitous because you guys know who he is. It is really important and really meaningful that we're cultivating some sort of creative community in Fort Lauderdale. I really want to thank you guys for showing up to other people's stuff. I really want to encourage you to show up to other people's stuff because that's how we're going to grow the creative community. Quoted by Tim Hass, the owner of General Provision, the co-working space in Fort Lauderdale. I guess you could say I was brought into this world to live a life of service. My parents, God bless them, love helping people, and they met through landmark education back in the day in Warner Earhart's S training, part of the advanced course track past the weekend-long landmark forum that, to a certain extent, predates similar events like gratitude training and Tony Robbins. My parents' love for these platforms and service was instilled in me from a young age as they had me take the landmark forum for children in Washington, D.C. when I was in the 5th grade. All I can really recall now from that early experience was not to run a racket, referring to letting stinking thinking and negative thought patterns resonate in your mind. I guess that kind of predated some of the work I love from Dr. Joe Dispenza in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself and all of his other phenomenal work. Nevertheless, be it from my father helping advocate to bring the game of lacrosse to prominence and inevitably the FHSA public school system in the state of Florida, earning him an inaugural spot in the Florida chapter of the Lacrosse Hall of Fame, or my mother's countless sponsees she supported through her work in recovery space between AA, Al-Anon, CODA, etc., and other groups, I learned to love the process of genuinely helping people because it's the right thing to do altruistically. So I guess it was my destiny that I was called into this life of service. First, by entering into the world of recruiting and helping people get placed into their future roles, which led to my path of self-discovery, TED Talks, Gary Vee, and eventually Entrepreneurville. When I was first getting started with Choose 954, I merely wanted to show the people I grew up with in Coral Springs all of the cool things that were going on in Fat Village in Fort Lauderdale so it could give them a reason to choose the 954 and come back at a macro level. When I started getting more granular and in deep with the artists I was forming relationships with in the arts districts, I truly just wanted to show people with my cell phone and Facebook Live initially that there was cool stuff going on in our community, which at the time the majority of people did not know about. The wins might have been so small back then, but I cherished and celebrated each and every single one of them. I vividly remember leaving events, meetings, and coffee shops with my cup so full it was overflowing with positive energy and emotions. If you were part of one of those, thank you. I wish more people would tell me about the wins to which I've helped contribute over the years, not because I need a payback or credit, because this shit is my oxygen and puts the air in my lungs. This is the shit that keeps me going when an artist tells me, thank you, because I did that thing you suggested I do or did with you. I just sold $10,000 worth of artwork to one collector. That might not seem like a lot, or that might seem like $1 million to you, but hearing those stories and feedback is what motivates me to keep going and impacting others. If we did all this good and no one cared and no one provided feedback and no one complained and we were just in a vacuum, there is no oxygen. I could write a book on all the moments I remember and all of the moments I've forgotten when we changed people's lives, but I'll include only a few of the most recent ones which I feel are worth mentioning here. As I began getting more involved in my new community of Hollywood in Florida in 2022, I connected with the curator of our city's Art and Culture Center, as well as our community's redevelopment agency's art coordinator, to establish a new component of our annual Fort Lauderdale Art and Design Week with the creation of an Art Hollywood Weekend. The goal was to create a day for open studios to highlight and showcase all of the talented artists working and residing in the great city of Hollywood, which unfortunately oftentimes is left in the shadows of Miami and the stepchild to Fort Lauderdale or even Palm Beach to a certain extent. When the event finally came to fruition with dozens of artists participating, I went around that day with a photo and video crew to document the artists working in their studios, the tours taking place, and the pop-up activations as part of this new event to storytell and showcase for marketing purposes. While I was doing so, something became apparent to me that maybe I took for granted or never really stopped to think about. Some artists never had people tour their studios, let alone have a photographer and videographer come in to produce high-quality recaps. Without naming anyone in particular, there's something I want to share regarding a few conversations I had with artists that day who are noteworthy and established in their own regard and who call Hollywood home. Hollywood is admittedly a little bit of a funny place, having once been an old sleepy beach town that has since come a long way to cement itself as one of the top cities to live in Broward County in South Florida, with a bevy of things to do and explore throughout the city's limits. One of the artists I had a deep conversation with that day was an older Hollywood native who had moved to Boston after high school and established a very successful art career spanning decades, having written books and completed numerous noteworthy nonprofit projects. This artist was preparing to return to Hollywood in the weeks leading up to the event we were putting together, and after being connected to us to participate and receive some marketing support, he shared how he was so moved to see all the progress that had been made in his hometown. He transparently shared his initial hesitations in coming back to a place that was previously referred to as a cultural wasteland, having come from a very well-cultured city like Boston, and was grateful that Andrew and I had taken the time out of our lives that we had to promote and support the arts. That conversation, his genuine gratitude, and the books, t-shirts, and merch he gave me to say thanks really stuck with me, cementing the feeling that the event was a success, even if it didn't attract thousands of attendees. And I'm just going to share, each chapter ends with a learning lesson, and this one I've already shared with a few of you. These are things I pose back on the readers to help them. So the learning lesson for this chapter is, have you ever done a random act of kindness, mentored someone you had the ability to support, joined a mini mastermind group like Accent Club to help support random peers with their goals? Help is out there and available, and help is on the way if you're present and show up for it. I encourage you to give someone in whom you see potential a piece of positive feedback, solicited or not, because you never know how that spark could light a fire inside of them to change their life, their community, or even the world. And that is a book. Thank you very much.